first of all, thanks a lot for your time. I know that you're really busy right now and you're spending time with your family in Bali, so I really, really appreciate you taking your time to talk to me. So that's the first thing I wanted to tell you. And for those that don't yet know you, could you quickly kind of introduce yourself, explain who you are, what do you do, what is your background, etc.?
Totally. My name is Dennis Simsek. I go by the online name, The Anxiety Guy. We have a podcast that's currently top 5 in the health category on iTunes called The Anxiety Guy Podcast, which in fact helps people with health anxiety, GAD, panic disorder, and such. And what I do is I'm a CBT and NLP practitioner. So I take these people and give them a roadmap to success over this and many other mental health challenges. I suffered with health anxiety for years and years and years, bewildered by it, didn't have any answers for it. I overcame it naturally. And then after that, I said, you know what can I do with this anxiety journey that I was on? What can I do with all this information I gained? So we decided, you know what, let's do a podcast. So the podcast's doing fantastic and lots of YouTube videos out there. So, just trying to help people that are very sensitized.
Yeah. I'm a huge listener of your podcast, of your video content. I also tune into your live sessions from time to time on Sunday on Instagram. So that's really good.
Nice.
For you specifically, do you know what triggered your hypochondria? You know what caused you to be sort of more fearful for diseases or death than others?
Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, I started playing tennis at the age of 3, and funny enough, my role model was Richard Krajicek, a Dutch.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
My dad wanted me to become a tennis professional. So from the age of 3 onwards, there was tons and tons of pressure on me because he saw the talent, he saw the passion that I had. And then the coaches got involved, my mom got involved, and people got involved and said, you know what, let's raise this kid to be a professional tennis player. And along that road, I had a very tunnel vision approach to tennis, and I didn't grow up with much of a childhood. Basically, everything related to tennis. I was up in the morning, did my practice, school was done, I went to do my practice, nutrition, physical exercise, fitness, everything was related to tennis. That came with a lot of pressure, and that came with a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. So as a kid, I grew up in an environment that was very, very difficult because I just wanted to be a child. A part of me wanted to be a kid. I wanted to play on the playground. I wanted to go do my homework and such, but people said, no, you got to play tennis. So I grew up in an environment that didn't support any kind of open-mindedness. And because of this, it led to me having general anxiety. So it all started with general anxiety. I started to fear because with tennis was you have to hit 400 forehands every day, and if you miss one of those, then that was a bad session, something like that.
Yeah.
And because of this attitude, I grew up with this attitude in different areas of my life. So I was a perfectionist, and as soon as something went wrong, I got anxiety because of it. I beat myself up over it, and it took a very long time for me to go from that narrow-minded approach, which was very associated, to a more open-minded approach, which was more dissociated.
Yeah.
So my dad had general anxiety. His dad had general anxiety. So it was in the genes, you could say. But more than anything, it started with general anxiety. That was the result of my environment growing up. And then it moved on to health anxiety. It was a fear of health concerns. Any symptoms I was feeling, I got scared. I always associated a sensation to being death, like I was going to die from it. And it didn't matter what people told me. It didn't matter what I took. I knew that the next sensation was the one that was going to kill me.
Of course,
so
yeah.
it's a very difficult cycle.
So basically, you had this general anxiety, and I suspect that you got heart palpitations and dizziness and that kind of stuff, hyperventilation, and that sort of triggered you thinking, oh, this might be a heart attack or whatever.
Exactly.
To be honest, that's exactly what happened to me as well.
Exactly. I mean, it's such a common story. The problem is that out in society right now, people don't know anything about health anxiety. It's like it's brand new. Yeah. Hypochondria. If you go to the doctor and say you have health anxiety or hypochondria, you're treated as a number. You're number 852 from the week. And that number will move towards what's the best type of medication for this person. It'll either be medication, or it'll be therapy, or it'll be both.
Yeah.
The problem with therapy is with talk therapy, they regress you back in the day and find out when these thoughts began, which is good. But there is no focus in any kind of outcome, where you want to go, what you want to do with this. So you're always managing and you're always coping.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, because a lot of people grow up with health anxiety and decide, you know what, it's just something I'm going to have to live with. I'm going to have to deal with this forever. When in fact, there are different options that we don't hear, right? So that's why the anxiety guy comes in, and I bring a ton of resources based around how do we reprogram and restructure those thought patterns and those belief systems, those core beliefs, right?
Yeah.
And then how do we reframe the memories? Because in neuroscience, it proves that every time you revisit a memory, it changes. So because your memories change, we can look at our childhood and say, you know what, it wasn't an awful childhood. It was a great childhood because of this, this, and this. So we can change the angle in which we look at it. But health anxiety is very new, and it's very new, and there's a lot of question marks as far as what the health anxiety sufferer is truly going through.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was trying to look up data on hypochondria, I saw that there was only very, very few data. Like, for example, in the number of people that have hypochondria, there's only some data about how many people approximately have health anxiety in the United States. But that's it. We don't know if it's a Western thing or if it's a thing of the entire world, how many people deal with it. And I think it's been ignored for so long. Because, I mean, you've gone through this as well. People just tell you, oh, you're just anxious, get over it, whatever. It's nothing bad. You're completely healthy, etc., etc. And then you start to kind of feel guilty for, okay, am I indeed, just thinking this to myself? And why am I thinking this? There's so many people around the world that have it way worse than I do. But still, in the end of the day, people with hypochondria face death, at least in their own minds, every single day.
Every day.
And I mean, you know what a horrible feeling that is. It is tough. But
horrible.
What I actually wanted to know is that, I mean, since we do face all these things, and I think you are one of the best examples of someone who kind of beat it, is it possible for hypochondriacs to completely eliminate all anxiety out of their lives, or is it something that you do indeed need to learn how to live with? And yes, you can take measures on how to live with it to reduce anxiety, but can you completely eliminate it?
Yes, you can completely eliminate health anxiety and hypochondria, but there are a number of factors that come into play with this. I work with a lot of people every single day on health anxiety and hypochondria through Skype sessions. The interesting thing is that when you have health anxiety, and a lot of times it goes hand in hand with panic, and when this is the case, a lot of people are suffering so deeply that they have no choice but to look for the magic pill, that one technique. They want to eliminate their state very, very quickly. And there's the problem. Because the solution to health anxiety starts with understanding. It starts with you studying and being a student of anxiety and being a student of life. It's about being a student of your mind, being a student of your body, your whole nervous system. When you gain a deeper understanding as far as how the fight or flight response works in your system, how your amygdala in your mind is misinterpreting information and all this sort of stuff that comes with the response you're getting to a symptom or something you read or whatever it is, you start to gain those moments of clarity. When you become clear, right, about, oh my goodness, I never saw things from that point of view. I never really understood, things in that way. When you get that kind of realization, you are beginning the road to recovery, okay? The road to recovery gets difficult when we see things day to day. I'm just, today was a bad day. Tomorrow, hopefully it's better. Last week was horrible. A lot of health anxiety sufferers judge their progress based around hour by hour by hour, day by day, and that's a lot of pressure, and that's more anxiety. People, first and foremost, need to say, you know what, it all starts with understanding. I've got to study what's really going on right now. Okay, that's the first thing, because when you begin studying, you gain realizations. Yeah. When you gain realizations, then you can start to implement certain skill sets. You can say, you know what, NLP says reframing, or thought restructuring, or, with health anxiety sufferers, what kind of breathing patterns do we have? Well, they're horrible. They're shallow. We're hyperventilators, right? So because this is the key, the body plays such a big aspect in overcoming health anxiety. Deep breathing is huge. Your posture is huge. And also the speed in which you do things every single day is huge, because when I had health anxiety, I don't know about you, but I didn't even realize what food I was eating. I was eating so quickly. Yeah. When I was walking quickly. When I was involved in an environment that made me nervous, I escaped that environment. Lots and lots of running, lots and lots of fighting, lots and lots of confusion, right? Health anxiety sufferers need to understand the cycle. The cycle is, first and foremost, curiosity. So they become curious as far as a sensation or a symptom goes. What could that symptom mean? Or they read something and they say, oh my God, I have to connect that to me. What if I get that cancer or tumor or whatever it is? Yeah. All of a sudden, there's curiosity. Then they go into NATs, negative automatic thoughts. So what ifs? What if this? What if that? Catastrophic thinking, right? Then they go into reassurance. So these people say, okay, well, honey, are you sure I'm healthy? Or they go into Dr. Google. They begin Googling their symptoms, trying to find an answer right away. The key to overcoming health anxiety is becoming comfortable with your sensations. And then understanding that the sensations and symptoms that you're feeling are normal, regular bodily responses, right, to a threat, either a real threat or a perceived threat. That's the bottom line. When you overcome the fear of death, when you stop trying to live your life with so much certainty for your health, I have to be certain every single moment, am I going to survive? And you start embracing uncertainty and say, you know what, I'm taking care of the puzzles, the XYZ. My health is good. I don't have to be overly concerned about it. Then you begin to get some flexibility. That's the road to recovery.
Yeah. Well, looking at my road to recovery, for example, I mean, I've been dealing with it 10 to 15 years. And what always happens is that I have these highs and these very lows. So there's times at which I completely handle the anxiety that I have. I can handle hyperventilation. I'm completely comfortable with everything. But then there comes another period in which I have very, very high levels of anxiety, thinking I'm going to die every single day, etc., etc. And the problem for me is that even though I can handle it very well, for example, in this specific period of my life, I'm kind of okay with it. Yesterday, I still had this idea, okay, I might have a heart attack, but no, I'm chill, I'm cool, I'm not going to acknowledge it, etc. But still, there's always this anxiety. And for some reason, it's really hard for me personally to eliminate that from my life. Would you have any ideas on how to do that? Or do you yourself still have some anxiety from time to time, even though you're not really reacting to it in the way that you did in the past, but is it still there?
You know, a lot of people ask me that. Do you still have anxiety? Do you still have panic attacks and this and that? You know, I have gotten so good at self-control that the three aspects that I really worked hard on were, number one, thoughts, restructuring thoughts. Yeah. Number two, words. You know, the way I talk to people was really important. I used to use words like should and other nervous words or sensitive words. And I used to ask people for advice and stuff that were suffering just like me. So that was bad advice.
No.
And then I also became a master at my imagination. My imagination was the very thing that got to the core of the issue. I started imagining things differently. I started to see myself differently. So when I mastered these three things, I started to get to a place of self-control and self-mastery. So now in my life, when I'm faced with a practical problem or I get a sensation or something like that, I spend about 10 to 20 seconds on it. And I'm able to defuse the problem instantly. And I rarely get these problems. Like it may be once a month. I'll be curious about something.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it was a 24-hour job. It was like constant, all the time, checking into my sensations. How do I feel? Am I going to die? Do I go to the emergency room? Blah, blah, blah. So I've gotten to a place where I can control my reactions to things because I understand two very important realizations. Number one, a thought is just a thought. It's so simple. But just because you think something doesn't mean that has any truth behind it.
Yeah.
We get 60,000 thoughts every single day. So I thought to myself, why am I focusing so much on the thought that's scary or the catastrophic event? But then I realized we're hardwired for fear, right? Everything is a saber-tooth tiger. If I get a bill in the mail, back in the day, I got fight or flight. I start to feel anxious. If my boss criticized me, I start to get anxious. Those are the threats today. The truth is that a thought is just a thought, and number two, an emotion is just an emotion. And I started to say, you know what? If I start to monitor my emotions and I start to implement some skill sets in the moment, I can in fact restructure my entire unconscious mind, my subconscious mind. Because my subconscious mind was like this shadow behind me, always following me wherever I went. So I realized after a while, if I was in a certain environment that made me nervous, whether I was aware of it or not, I could basically use my feelings as a GPS, as saying, you know what? Oh, I'm feeling a certain way. Well, I must have something in the environment that's causing me to feel this way. The question was, what was I going to do in that moment? It wasn't about the thoughts I was getting. It wasn't about the emotions I was feeling. The question was, what was I going to think and how was I going to behave in that moment? And my unconscious mind was taking notes. What's Dennis going to do? And if I ran away, it said, okay, there really was a threat there, right? If I stayed in that moment and started to restructure my thoughts and start to reorganize my emotions, and I start to focus on something in the external world, I start to find that my sensations lessened, and I proved to myself once and for all that these were not life-threatening things. It was just a bodily response.
Yeah.
This was the tactic I used in the beginning. Of course, it gets really in-depth after this, but this is the starting point, is to understand that thoughts and emotions are just natural, and you don't have to follow either of them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I've taken the same measures as that. I mean, I think the one thing that you said before is that be a student of your mind and be a student of your body as well, as in recognizing, okay, when is my body getting nervous or anxious, and indeed how do the systems in my mind work and how can I control them, because you can manipulate them basically. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that we do, and that a lot of people don't know because they let others decide for them who they need to be, who they need to become, and how their mind or how their body's being programmed. But you can
Very true.
indeed take control yourself and start to modify things. And
Totally.
I mean, I think this gives a lot of hope to people that are anxious, that do have health anxiety. Okay, you do feel bad right now, but you can control it. I mean, we probably cannot control our anxiety at all. There's always this amygdala in our mind, but we can control what we do with that information, what we do, how we react to that.
Very good. You know, I want to cut you off, and everything that you're saying is based around what a student would think and how a student would react. So everything you said was fantastic. A sufferer wouldn't speak like this, right? A sufferer finds that to think equals pain, right? And if I have to think through something, it's pain, because your unconscious mind wants to automate everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't want you to step in and say, hey, do this, or think like this, or remember things in this way. It doesn't want that. That's why we're wired to try to automate everything. So pain equals thinking. Pain equals behaving differently. Pain equals new habits. This is all pain to people. That's why I tell people, you know what, 3 months. You've got to give it 3 months. You've got to set a plan. You've got to gain the realizations, the mindsets. You've got to become a student of anxiety. And then in 3 months' time, change is going to happen. Of course, there's many different factors that involve, but what you said there was brilliant.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have to realize that. And I mean, indeed, you cannot eliminate this in day one. It's going to be rough. You're going to go through hell. I mean, even when implementing this, you can still go to see the doctor because you're very scared of something. But another question I want to ask you is that, do you think that these modern times and the internet have contributed to us being more hypochondriac? And because, I mean, back in the day, we didn't know anything about health or medics or whatever. But right now, you and I, we're not doctors, but we do have a lot of medical information. We do know what kind of diseases are out there, which ones are lethal, which symptoms go with those diseases. And if you want to have an answer right now, I mean, the answer is at your fingertips. So you think that there's such a thing as knowing too much?
Absolutely. You know, you said something really important there, and it's knowing too much. And there are a lot of people out there that there's a fine line between implementing what you know and gaining understanding, using skill sets, reframing things, retraining your unconscious mind. And there are people that are so desperate for change that they're over trying.
Yeah.
Right? They're overdoing things. They're every skill set, every minute, they're trying to apply some technique. They're trying to do something, right? And that's wrong as well. So there's got to be a balance there.
Yeah, because then you're kind of being too conscious or something. You're working on it too consciously.
Again, that's going internal,
yeah.
Right? Internal. Being in your mind means you're gonna fail eventually, because you're using up a lot of willpower, you're using up a lot of internal resources and energy, and that's no good as well. So balance is really important. But aside from this, the internet today is probably the best and worst thing that's ever happened to us. Best because we've got unlimited amounts of information out there. But again, when we talk about health anxiety, recovery, and support, there's limited. In generalized anxiety, there's very little excellent information. There's decent information, but there's very little excellent information, because the people out there that are now life coaches and stuff, and I talk to these people and I give them a piece of my mind. I say, you know what? You're full of crap, right? Because you're using people, you're using their sensitivity to further your agenda, right? So the information is difficult. It's very difficult to get very targeted information to say, you know what, 3 months, do this, do that, and I'm here for you. There was no support for me. I had to dig very deep. So the internet is a great tool today to use to gain a better understanding of what you're going through, and possibly to gain the skill sets and the mindset to move forward. But as well, we're talking about social media, we're talking about news feeds, we're talking about overstimulation, we're talking about his life, her life, great photos here or there, you know, selfies and everything. We are bombarded with all sorts of garbage out there that's contributing to our anxiety levels. Absolutely. So yes, it's good. Yes, we can use it for good. No, it's bad if you continue going to those anxiety forums that say, hey, has anybody ever tried this medication? Hey, have you ever experienced this? You're asking people opinions that are suffering just like you.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. You're just going in cycles. And this is a cycle where people start to get comfortable with. They say, wow, I've made some friends in this forum. I've made some great relationships. I feel the love here. I feel significant. When this is the case, people tend to not want to overcome their anxiety. They say, I'm okay maintaining this. It's not getting bad. It's not getting better. I'm okay. So it's difficult to find good information. And I want to push people to make sure that they limit the amount of time they spend on Facebook and Twitter and new Snapchat and this and that, because it's difficult and it adds more anxiety to your life.
Yeah. But on the other hand, like sources such as the Anxiety Guide, the Facebook group that you have and that I'm a part of as well, I mean, it also helps me a lot to know that there's other people out there that go through the exact same things, that have the same symptoms, that also are hypochondriacs, because it does help me reassure that, okay, I might not be sick. I might not have this brain tumor or coronary disease or whatever. It does help me a lot. And then on the other hand, also to have you as an example of someone who's been through it but beat it and look at where you are right now. I mean, okay, it is not a fixed state that you're in. It's flexible and you can move yourself up and go to much calmer sensations in your mind and in your body.
Exactly.
So it does help a lot. As to go to the internet and what you often refer to as Dr. Google, I myself, I made a pact with my mom, which means that I am not allowed to go on Google to search symptoms that I have. And I made a pact with her, and she knows that my word to my mother, it's binding. I will never ever jeopardize that. But in the instances at which my anxiety is at a level of a 9 or a 10, so like really, really high, I am allowed to ask my mom to look symptoms up for me on Google and ask me questions. That's when I need reassurance. But do you think a tactic like this one is a good one? Because on one hand, yes, I'm not looking up on Google, right? I'm not doing it. But at the other hand, I'm also sort of not facing my fear, right? Because by not looking it up, I leave it out there.
I get it. I used to do that too. I used to say, okay, I'm not going to Google, but Robin, my fiance, can you go on and check this for me, and we'll come up with a system where I'm still feeling, okay with things, and then my symptoms would subside for the time being, and then the next day would be the same cycle.
Yeah.
You know what? It's always going to come haunt you if you don't replace that behavior.
Yeah.
Because Googling your symptoms gives you what? Okay, when we're talking about the human needs, we're talking about Googling your symptoms gives you a sense of comfort. It gives you a sense of relief. It gives you the most important thing that health anxiety sufferers need: certainty.
Yeah, you're going to live this day.
Yeah. When you have certainty, you can survive another day with health anxiety and hypochondria, right? But again, if certainty is your number one ranking all the time as far as your health goes and your health concerns, your physical, your mental, emotional health, you're always going to be living behind the gun. Okay, you're always going to be searching for ways to gain that reassurance. What if you gained certainty, that same feeling, in a different way at the same time you wanted to Google your symptoms? So I used to Google my symptoms all the time. And I said, I get a certain feeling from this. Well, what if I tried to get the same feeling, but I didn't cycle around health anxiety and go on Google, but I looked over here to get the same feeling of significance or certainty in my life or whatever it was. So I started to apply all sorts of different stuff. I started to go, you know what? I'm going to go get a hug from my fiance. I'm going to go play with my kid. I have certainty that I'm getting love from somebody, and I have certainty that I'm significant to them. I started to replace those anxious behaviors with something else. That was one thing I did. The other thing I did was I got really good at breaking a pattern, right? I remember one person asked me one time when I had health anxiety. I was like an 8 or 9. And out of the blue, I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling dizzy, everything going on with health anxiety, sensations. And then this person asked me a question. He said, why is the moon made out of green cheese? And in that moment, I was like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And then it dawned upon me that I started to focus on trying to find the answer to his question, which is what our neurology does. So I start to investigate it, and I start to go, what are you talking about? The moon's not made out of green cheese. It's, in fact, this and that and whatever, and the moon is this. And he started to ask me other questions. Next thing you know, 5 minutes passed, and my anxiety levels and my interest over my sensations went down.
Yeah.
And I was at about a 2 or a 3. I was disinterested. It proved to me that I could break a pattern in the moment and start to go in a different direction. It was like this freedom. Then I started to take cold showers. As soon as I started to get, that feeling of I've got to go check this or ask that or go to the doctors or something because I'm concerned, I took a 1-minute cold shower. I broke the pattern.
Yeah.
There were many different ways that I did that. And then I got to the point where even when I felt a sensation, I was disinterested. I said, you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to go about what I'm doing because I know what it is. I know that I've survived every panicky feeling before, every sensation before. So now I choose to turn my attention elsewhere because I know what a waste of time it is for me to continue to worry about my health, worry about my sensations. So that was really, really important, to replace behaviors and to break a pattern. Those were huge.
Yeah. I think I do the same thing when I feel very anxious and when I'm at home. What I tend to do is I turn on my PlayStation, play a game, at which I actually need to do something and takes my mind off a little bit, and then it calms down. Watching a series, for example, doesn't work because I know that I consciously know that I'm trying to distract myself. But when I have to kind of do something and my mind is being occupied by something such as a game, it kind of tends to go away. Indeed, it's a very, very powerful tactic indeed.
It's great as long as that behavior isn't running away from something, but it's in fact making you less interested in your sensations. There's a big difference. Someone who runs out of an auditorium that they're getting nervous about a speech they have to give is now making it more sensitive to go into that auditorium next time and to be around people. And if there's food, they'll be sensitive to food and so on. So there's a fine line between distracting yourself and doing things that truly take your attention off of your sensations and your concerns and moving in a different direction, becoming disinterested. So that's really good.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, I have that from time to time when I go to the city center, when I walk through shops, that I get dizzy, etc., because of all of the information that is coming at me. And in the end, I used to go back home, but now I don't anymore because I know it's bad to run away from a situation. So I stay there, and I still try to keep going there, and I do leave after time, but I don't leave at the very moment that this anxiety strikes. That's when I stay, because I've learned how to face it and not run away from it.
I love that. I'm going to touch on something there, because you're doing something, again, we're talking about the amygdala, we're talking about the subconscious mind, and it's asking the question of, what Jonathan is going to do in that moment of anxiousness. And by you being in that moment for a longer period of time, 5 to 10 minutes, you're changing the pairing, right? So now the environment that you're in isn't a threat anymore. And your mind understands. It's saying, wow, he's in this environment for longer this time. His mindset is changing this time. The pairing between the environment and the sensitivity is changing. Now it's a safe place. So next time you go to that same place, it's going to get lesser and lesser and lesser till it completely subsides and goes away. So that's excellent.
Thank you. I think I can kind of start to wrap this up, this interview, but I wanted to ask you, do you have any recommendations or thoughts for people that go through health anxiety right now, but also for those that don't understand anything about health anxiety?
Listen to the Anxiety Guy podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
You cannot get better information than someone who's gone through what you've gone through. A lot of people out there that have health anxiety go to therapists and counseling and stuff like that, which is okay if you're mild to moderate anxiety levels. But if that person has not gone through what you've gone through, I remember my counselor grabbing a book and saying, which technique are we going to use today? That's not what I needed. I needed someone to be able to relate to what I was going through.
Yeah.
So first things first, get the information from someone who's been in your shoes, exactly your shoes, right? If it's health anxiety, you can ask me questions, Jonathan questions, great. We've been through it. We've done the work. We've desensitized ourselves. And we are the people that can give good information. So it's important to first and foremost understand, where's my information coming from? Secondly, it's important to come up with a plan. What's the plan going to be, right? It's going to be painful, because you're going to find that if you're severely sensitized, you're going to have to put in 10 times work as far as your thoughts, your words, your habits, and your imagination. You're going to have to put in a lot of work, a lot of monitoring, a lot of different things going on for the first couple of weeks. But then things get better. Then you only have to try 5 times to get the same amount. Then you have to try 3 times to get the same amount. Then 1 time to get the same amount. Then you barely have to try, and the amount that you get starts to get better and better and better. So it's a process. People have to understand out there that if you have health anxiety, hypochondria, it's a process. There's no magic pill. Stop searching for the magic pill, that one technique, that one chapter in the book that's going to change you. Begin with realizations and understanding what's going on. What's going on with your nervous system? What's going on with your unconscious mind? Because most people, like I mentioned, would rather go back to pre-programmed memory and feel the pain rather than think their way through things, because it's so foreign. Thinking is foreign to people. Reacting is something that's familiar. And your system will constantly move towards what's familiar rather than what's unfamiliar. Okay? So get the right information from the person that's gone through what you've gone through. Listen to podcasts. Listen to things that are going to get you to a deeper understanding. Then begin changing your mindset and applying new skills in the moment that you fear your sensations or fear something. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't agree more with you. thank you a lot again for your time. I really, really appreciate this. I mean, I've got tons of great information that will benefit me, but also this documentary that I'm creating. So yeah, thanks a lot, man.
So grateful, so honored. Thank you so much, Jonathan.